My name is Patrick G. I am a 20-month kidney transplant recipient. And if I had to give a title to my journey, it would be finding myself in a broken state. So in order to tell this journey, I really need to start at the conception. Growing up, a lot of people didn't know that I was a world-class amateur martial artist. I was one of the youngest Taekwondo black belts in the state of Virginia. First learning judo, then Taekwondo, and then getting into some other arts such as Hapkido, Wing Chun, to finally kind of mastering Ishinryu, Shotokan, Aikido. Also, while in high school, I was on the track team. I wrestled, and I also played football. Ended up getting a football scholarship to Howard University. Played for them for 3 years. Eventually transferred to University of Richmond. Majored in criminal justice. So, make a long story short, I killed my kidney. In 2003, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And when I said that I killed my kidney, I'm saying that I'm taking full responsibility for the failure of it. Diabetes ran on both sides of my family. And coming from a family of African Americans, based on our culture, we really didn't know what proper nutrition was. I can remember growing up and just seeing all of my food that I ate as brown, everything, from a white egg to being brown. Everything was always cooked in lard and stuff like that. And I kind of joke with my wife, you know, the first time as an adult going to the grocery store and seeing yellow squash, and I didn't know what it was because when it was served to me, it was brown. So there was no nutritional education growing up. Always ate what we had, and it was never fixed properly. So in 2003, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. My glucose level at the time was 758. My A1C was 11.7. At that time, nobody told me that I was at risk for kidney disease, since diabetes is the #1 leading cause of kidney disease. Then right after that, hypertension. Nobody told me that I was at risk for kidney disease, since hypertension was #2. So now I'm walking around with both of those illnesses, and I'm on every kind of medication for each one that I can be on. But I'm ignoring what the physicians are telling me to do as far as taking care of myself. And then eventually I get put on not one, but 2 different types of insulin. One that I have to take before each meal and another one that I have to take at night. But yet and still, at the time I was working 2 jobs, one for the Virginia Department of Corrections and a part-time job with the Virginia Department of Juvenile Justice. So I think I slept maybe a total of 3.5 to 4 hours a day, ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner at 11 o'clock at night all together, and then went to sleep. So of course, I'm not taking care of my body. I would go to the gym, but I still wasn't taking care of my body. So when my endocrinologist told me that my kidneys were failing, it wasn't an aha moment. It wasn't anything that I worried about. I really ignored it until she referred me to a nephrologist. And then when they really told me exactly what my kidney does, it was a shock because through all of my education, even health classes in college and high school, nobody told me the kidney function. And basically, after they broke it down, it was like, well, we're going to try to slow your function down. So what we're going to do is tell you to stop eating certain foods. You're going to eventually go on dialysis, but we're going to prolong it. So from April of 2013 until November 2013, I had to stop eating certain foods, but yet and still I was gaining weight. I think September of 2013 of that year, I went to a dialysis facility to do a kidney dialysis education program. I was offered 2 different modalities. Either it was going to be in-center hemodialysis or peritoneal dialysis. I was told of nothing else. So I was showed a video, and then the nurse asked me, well, do you want to go into a hemodialysis center? And I said, yeah. So she took me into one which was right across the street. I walked in, and within 5 minutes, I'm standing there, I'm crying, I'm seeing the paramedics wheel folks out. I'm looking at amputees, it's cold, it's heartless, and I'm like, I can't do this. So she gives me information. I go home to my wife. I'm sitting down with her. I'm explaining to her everything that's going on. I can see the worry in her eye. But I'm trying to hold my composure because now it's real, because of my ignorance, because of my hard-headedness, because of my stubbornness. Now I'm faced with reality. This photograph shows me the choice I made doing peritoneal dialysis. At the time that I started dialysis, I was 378 pounds on a 5'9" frame. The day that I went into my nephrologist's office for an appointment in November, I was huffing and puffing. It was cold outside. All I had was a white t-shirt on, a pair of black sweatpants, white socks, pair of flip-flops. I'm hyperventilating, and my wife asked the doctor, look, he needs to start dialysis, and he needs to start dialysis now. So what you gonna do? Got on the phone, scheduled me for the surgery, so had the surgery, started dialysis December the 1st, 2013. That first month, I lost 58 pounds of just fluid. But what was interesting in my journey, nobody told me anything about preemptive kidney transplantation. And when I learned about it, I was wondering, well, okay, April of 2013, I'm told that I have 35% kidney function. Why didn't anybody tell me, hey, why don't you try to find a donor so you can avoid dialysis? I didn't learn about preemptive kidney transplant until maybe a year into peritoneal dialysis. So I was like, wow. So now I'm angry because I'm like, in this picture, you can see that because of my size and they couldn't figure out the right dialysis prescription, I had to do what was known as high dose therapy. So I had to do 5 exchanges a day for a total of 10.5 hours a day, 7 days a week, which equates to 35 exchanges at 73.5 hours a week. So if you do the math, that's 294 exchanges a month, 3,528 in a year, 14,112 exchanges for the 4 years that I was on peritoneal dialysis. That's a lot. I can't get that time back. I can reflect on it. I can say, well, I wish if I would have taken better care of myself, or if I would have eaten better, or if I would have watched my hypertension or watched my intake. 4 years of my life that I cannot get back. My care team at my dialysis facility was like, well, Patrick, do you want a transplant? I'm like, yeah. They said, okay, well, your lab's been looking good. Even though my phosphorus was high, my potassium was high, but it was still manageable. I was suffering with anemia. So, I have a lot of different things going on right now. The diabetes, the hypertension, phosphorus issues, anemia, all this other stuff. And it became kind of overwhelming. But yet and still, I knew that I wanted a transplant. So they recommended me to one transplant center. They recommended me. They never asked me where I wanted to go. So they sent my file to a particular transplant center. It took 8 months just to schedule an interview. So I go in for the interview, and when the nephrologist and the surgeon and the transplant coordinator were sitting there talking at me, because they weren't talking to me, I took the transplantation education course, but I really felt belittled, not cared about. It just made me have an uneasy feeling, because they kept talking about percentages. Well, you're high risk because your BMI is too high, so we're going to put you on the inactive list until you can lose more weight. And then the weight that they was asking me to lose, I'm at that weight now. So, I was like, well, I'll never get a transplant here. So I go back and talk to my social worker and explain to her, and they're fighting on my behalf. But here again, you're talking about one patient versus a transplant center's bottom line. So just so happened, I go in for a doctor's day at my clinic, and I run into a transplant coordinator from another center. And she talked to me, and she was like, well, we do more at-risk transplantation. So, yeah, if you want to transfer, and before she can get out her mouth, I had already signed, yeah, let's make it happen. So it took 3 months for my paperwork to get transferred over. I went down there. I felt a whole lot better. One of the things that a lot of people fail to realize is that in order for you to engage with somebody, you have to have a relationship. They established a relationship before they got to business. So when they knew that I felt comfortable and I asked every conceivable question that a patient can ask, I ended up being placed on the transplant waiting list. I received a call for a kidney May the 20th, 2016. I was really excited. I got the call at like 8:45 p.m. that night. My wife was right there with me. We celebrated. I called my pastor. We prayed over the phone. I put it on Facebook and everything. I get to the hospital. They bring me in. They told me, hey, look, finish dialyzing, but bring an extra bag of fluid. I got in. They set me up, put the IVs and everything in. I'm sitting in the bed. I'm looking at my wife. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get this kidney. I meet the team, talk to everybody, sign all the necessary papers. 20 minutes before surgery, physician comes in. Patrick, we got bad news. And I'm like, what? They said, well, because of your size, you would have got 2 kidneys because the kidneys are small. I said, well, I never heard that. I said, all right, but I'll take them. He said the 2 kidneys would function as 1. I'm like, all right, that's good. They said, well, only 1 kidney out the 2 works. I was like, wow. They said, but because you got this call, you'll probably, there'll probably be another kidney in the next 3 months. Well, 3 months turned into 11 months. It didn't stop me from doing what I need to do. It didn't stop me from advocating. I wasn't mad. I was more concerned about my wife than myself. So I was like, okay, well, one monkey don't stop no show. We still got patients to advocate for and policies to get pushed through Congress and stuff like that. April the 20th, 2017, 11:05 p.m., I get a call for a kidney. So we decided to take a different approach. My wife and I, we didn't tell anybody. I told her we wasn't going to tell anybody until you see me on the gurney getting pushed to the OR. I ended up going back to the same room that I went to in May of the previous year with the same nurse. And I'm like, okay, either this is deja vu or this is God trying to tell me something. I get worked up, meet the team, and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, okay, is this gonna be a replay or am I actually gonna get out the room? So I got moved out the room, taken down to the OR, and they said, well, Mr. G, it's a wait. So I go in about a couple of hours later. So when I wake up, I'm thinking, now, of course, I made this arrangement with my wife. Hey, when you get up from your transplant, you can have anything you want. So I said, Tina, where's my butter pecan ice cream? And she kept saying, baby, I got something to tell you. I said, no, you don't have nothing to tell me. I need my ice cream. Where is my ice cream? And she was like, baby, I got to tell you something. What are you going to tell me? Your kidney isn't working. I'm like, huh? They gave me a bad kidney? So then I looked. So now I have a PICC line right here. And I'm like, so does that mean I have to do dialysis? And I felt down and they took my catheter out because they told me irregardless whether the kidney works or not, they're going to take that catheter out. My care team comes in. Doctor comes in. Oh, Mr. G, this happens all the time. 33% of transplant patients, the kidney doesn't work at first. He said, but it'll eventually come. So now I'm doing 24 hours of dialysis. I never heard of it. I would dialyze the entire day on a Friday, skip Saturday, dialyze the entire day, Sunday, skip Monday, on a regimen like that. 5 days after getting my kidney, the doctor comes in and said, Mr. G, we need to do a second surgery. You have a blood clot in your neck. And the blood clot is because of heparin. And I'm like, hold up. How does a blood thinner cause me to have a blood clot? They want to do a second surgery. I said, you know what? I'm not healed from the first one. This ain't gonna happen. Take these IVs out me. I am not going in surgery no more. Nope. Let me go home and die. My wife bends over, whispers in my ear, baby, I need you here. Doc, he'll do the surgery. Now, of course, I'm on morphine, Dilaudid, fentanyl, Oxycontin. So I'm talking out my head. So one, I'm very grateful for my wife being there, because if it wasn't for her composure and her calmness, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair now. So, go through the second surgery. I wake up, is my kidney working? No, your kidney not working, but you don't have a blood clot no more. 3 days later, Mr. G, doing that second surgery, you were nicked. So now you're bleeding internally. So we have to do another surgery. Nope. Not going through that. Y'all need to take all this stuff out. Nope. Can't do it. I'm going home. Let me die. I start pulling tubes out. My wife bends over again. Baby, we ain't going through this again. Didn't I tell you I need you here? Doc, go ahead, get them prepped. They put in a J tube. Looks like a little hand grenade. And what it's supposed to do is just catch that extra blood that's until I can heal eternally. So I have to wear that for 17 days. Kidney still isn't working. So 17 days later. All right, Mr. G, we got to remove the J tube. And what we're going to do is create a peritoneal window so you can drain on the inside. So my wife looked at me, oh, you not going to fight this one? No. Whatever they do, they do. So they did the fourth surgery. I stayed in the hospital for 33 days. Kidney never woke up. So I guess they got tired of me. They sent me to a rehabilitation place so I could start working out. That was a disaster. The rehabilitation center was low on staff. They quarantined me 2 days after I got there, saying, oh, you got a kidney transplant, so we don't want you to get infected. Even though when I was transported there, I never had a mask on. The whole time after every surgery, no surgeon ever came in my room with a mask on. My first 2 days at the rehabilitation center, nobody came in contact with me with a mask on. So now, while I'm quarantined, they had masks, all the coverings, the gloves on the outside the door. So before you get in my room, you have to mask up. Nobody masked up. Food service, doctors, nurses, nobody masked up. So now I'm sitting there mad because I'm like, why am I on quarantine? And they kept telling me the same thing. Well, you just got a new organ. Well, if nobody's following procedures, then either send me home or take this stuff off the door. So after 6 days of literally going through hell there, I got my release. I went home. Through my insurance, I was able to receive in-home care. In-home care nursing service will come out every day to change my wound. Now, this is a picture of me, my first day at home. I wasn't aware that I was left open like this, but my wife treated me like a science project. She had to take a picture once a week. They would have to measure my wound, and my surgeon wanted to see if it was healing properly. So this is the picture of my wound, my very first day home. Now, because I had so many surgeries, I had to walk around with a wound vac, so they didn't want to just stitch it together. So they placed a wound vac over it so it could just pull everything together and I could just heal on my own. So again, I get home, kidney is still asleep. It wasn't until the 47th day that my kidney woke up. So me being a spiritual person, there's always a rhyme and a reason why things tend to happen. So if you look at the number 4, the number of surgeries I had was 4. 4 in biblical terms represents God's promise, but it also represents God's judgment. Everything that I went through with this transplant, everything that I went through while I was on peritoneal dialysis, everything that I went through with being hard-headed and not wanting to take care of myself, led to a divine intervention. God gave up on me. There was something that I needed to do before I could literally get healed. I had to suffer. So while I'm in the hospital, my pastor came up there and he said, Patrick, he said, do you trust me? I said, yes, sir. He said, do you understand me? He said, I know you're on all this medication, but do you understand what I'm saying to you? And I said, yes, sir. He said, I need you to do something. I said, well, what is that? He said, I need you not to take any pain medication. I said, what? He said, yeah, I don't want you to take any pain medication. Because the 2 times that I took Oxycontin, I fought staph. I'm not used to taking Oxycontin. I'm not used to taking pain medication. I literally fought staph, even to the point of waking up one night and I'm strapped down to the bed and I look over to my left and I see my wife on her knees crying. And I asked her what happened and she looked at me like she was about to slap me. And she was like, you don't know what you did? I was like, no. She said, you hit everybody, you fought everybody, and that's why you strapped down to the bed. This happened twice. I couldn't remember anything. So I was like, well, maybe my pastor is on to something. At first I thought he was crazy because I'm in pain. I've been operated on 4 times and I'm still trying to recoup from the first surgery. So I'm like, okay. So then, he ends the conversation with, you need to trust the process. He just walked out. Didn't explain to me what the process was. I'm sitting here talking to myself, what is the process? So I knew in order for me to receive healing, I had to suffer. I had to endure whatever it was that I didn't do. And what it was, I had an issue with forgiveness. When I look back over what made me angry, it was hearing comments like, well, you don't look sick. You don't look like you're on dialysis. I don't see nothing in your arm. So when I would lift up my shirt, people would holler. I never forget when I went to visit my cardiologist, and he had a new nurse, and they wanted to do a EKG. Asked me to take my shirt off. I took my shirt off. She hollered. Other nurses came running into the room like, what's going on? What is he trying to do something? I'm sitting on a gurney and I have a white belt wrapped around my waist with my catheter in it. And out of her mouth, she says, what the hell is that? I said, I'm on peritoneal dialysis. Okay, but what the hell is that? That's how I do dialysis. It's my catheter. Lord, you look like a transformer. All of this stuff I kept pent in. My kids didn't want to be around me. They couldn't take seeing me die alive. My grandchildren used to make fun of it. My granddaughter would get masked up, God bless her soul, but she didn't understand what was going on. She would come over to me. Pop, are you sick? I said, no, I'm just doing dialysis. Well, Pop, what's that? And I would explain to her, and she was like, okay. And she kept asking me that question every time she saw me, but my children just couldn't take it. They couldn't take seeing me sick. They couldn't take seeing, even my sister-in-law would not come into the room where I dialyzed. So all that pent up hostility and aggression, even though I said I forgave folks, I really hadn't. So as I was laying in the hospital bed, and it was put in my spirit that in order for me to be healed, I had to forgive. So as I'm laying there and I'm suffering, and nurses coming in the day and at the night, waking me up, pulling on my catheter. I mean, there were even nurses on the ground, low crawling. I am mad. Doctors coming in, telling me, all right, Mr. G, you're going to go home, and then they change their mind. But the one thing that really got me, I worked 20-some years for the Virginia Department of Corrections, and they moved me around the hospital a whole lot. This hospital has a prison ward. One of the places that I was placed after surgery was in the old prison ward. I'm sitting in a cell that I remembered so vividly and had a flashback of where we had to extract an inmate from this particular cell. And when I asked the nurse, is this the old prison ward unit? Oh, yeah, but they have a new unit now, so, we're just using this for dialysis patients. I was told about a form of PTSD that most patients go through when they experience some sort of trauma in the hospital. And it was like, if you keep on reliving a particular thing about your hospital stay, then this is a form of PTSD. And I kept reliving it. When I worked for the Virginia Department of Corrections, one of my duties was to transport death row inmates from Sussex One State Prison to Greensville Correctional Center, where they did the executions. Then my other job was, after the execution, to transport the bodies back to the morgue. I had a dream one night of the 12 executions that I worked, that I was buried with them in the football field. I was planted on the football field, and all these tractors are coming down toward me, and I can't move. And the inmates on each side of me are like, yeah, you should have saved us. Now you gonna get done just like we are. And I'm just hooping and hollering, and I'm hollering for my mother. But my wife is sitting there trying to talk to me like, no, baby, I'm right here, and I'm not hearing nothing. And this is where I am swinging on everything and everybody I can, until I wake up and I'm strapped down to the bed. And I knew right then I had to suffer in order to be healed. It was at that moment I had to forgive. And I believe that's why I stayed in the hospital so long. I believe that's why I went through what I went through at the rehabilitation center. I believe that's why it took so long for my kidney to start working, because I had to go through this process. So it was while I was in the hospital, I decided to name my kidney Lazarus. Because if you read scripture in the book of John, it talked about when Martha ran to Jesus and said, Lazarus is dead. But as Jesus was going to see Lazarus, he stopped and dealt with another issue. So he didn't get to Lazarus until some days later. But he tried to tell people that Lazarus wasn't dead. He was just asleep. My kidney wasn't dead. It was just sleep. But see, people on the outside that have never experienced anything like this wouldn't know. My doctors never said, Mr. G, we got to take the kidney out. It's not going to wake up. They always came in with a smile. Oh, we've seen this. You'll be all right. I thought they were crazy. They was a part of the process that I need to trust. It didn't dawn on me. But they was a part of that process that my pastor told me that I need to trust. I realized that the greatest gift outside of Jesus Christ that God has ever given me was my wife. 6 weeks she spent sleeping in a chair, sleeping in a cot. She wouldn't leave. We were getting arguments. Baby, go home. She would not leave. But of course, I had to joke with her because she became the Al Bundy of care partners. Because she was a CNA for 10 years, long time ago. So every nurse that came in, she was like HR. Who are you? Well, where are you getting your learning from? Why are you here? I was a CNA for 10 years. No different than Al Bundy talking about, hey, I was a high school football player. I scored 4 touchdowns in one game. She was on it. She documented everything. She did the nurses' jobs. When I went to rehab, the nurses came to her. Miss G, do you have the times that I gave your husband medication? And, well, how much urine did he put out? And how many times did he go to the bathroom? She was like, yeah. Yeah, I got him right here. I couldn't have done this. In all my prideful, narcissistic, and egomaniac ways, I had to humble myself because I could not go through this by myself. But as soon as I got home and she knew that I was in capable hands of the in-home nurses, she felt relieved enough to go back to work. Trusting the process, walking out this process, living this process. If I had to do it all over again, all the surgeries, the kidney not waking up, I would do it in a heartbeat because of my wife. And because of all of this, now she wants to be an organ donor. She wants to be a living liver donor. Who would think that somebody would want to go through this? Your care partner now wants to donate. So now we care for each other even harder because my wife suffers from fibromyalgia. So it's like the blind leading the blind. I have to stay healthy for when she goes down. She has to stay healthy for when I go down. But I wouldn't change a thing about the dynamics of our marriage. Some people think we're strange. I think we're in love. For better, for worse. This is my Rhea. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair right now. If it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't have never went in the gym with a wound vac on, disobeying what the doctors told me because I followed the process. So now I'm in the gym with 225 on the bench. They told me not to lift over 50 pounds, but it was something put in my spirit. I said, let me go throw up a couple of reps. I did. That was the last time I did it because I was dying afterwards, but still, I went through it. This is my nurse that did the occupational therapy at my rehabilitation center. She believed in me. We had a relationship. I was able to listen to her so that I could get home so that my wife can go back to some form of normalcy. After I got my transplant, my nurses were like, well, Mr. G, your labs are looking good. Your kidney function. Yeah, man, you must be peeing good. I said, yeah, I am. This is the happiest feeling I ever had. Because I hadn't urinated in 2.5 years. And people don't realize it's the small things that matter. Try going without urinating for a couple of hours, much less 2.5 years. When I finally was able to make urine, you would have thought I hit the lottery. Actually, which I did. And I haven't stopped urinating since. There isn't a bathroom or a stall that I won't take for granted. And I will test out all of them. But my nurses told me, they said, Mr. G, you're still obese. Even though your labs are looking good, your kidney isn't going to last long. So now you need to start thinking down the road. You need to lose weight. My wife and I went on a journey of being vegetarians. We became vegans. The Mediterranean diet. We went on all of that. It didn't work. So one day my transplant nephrologist came in. He said, look, I'm gonna hip you to the game. He said, you don't know it, but let me break it down for you. He said, you know the reason you can't lose weight? He said, because you're on insulin. He said, insulin is preventing you from losing weight. Because insulin stores fat. You can't lose weight. I said, well, why didn't my endocrinologist tell me that? They said, well, hey, they got to make money somehow. So they recommended me to go to the weight loss clinic at my transplant center. Go to the weight loss clinic. They put me on the ketogenic diet. 70% high fats, coconut oil, avocado oil, nuts, stuff like that. 25% protein and 5% carbs. So the physicians, the nurses, everybody in this clinic on a ketogenic diet. Okay, I'll try it. They said, but when you start, we're going to take you off of all your insulin. Man, I've been on insulin since 2003. We're going to take you off your insulin. Start the ketogenic diet February the 16th, 2018. So when you lose weight, you have book pictures. Each book weighs between 8-10 pounds. So you have to have 3 books in order to do your first picture. This is my first picture. This is my second picture. 4 books. This is my third picture. 5 books. That's the wife and I at my very first kidney transplant game. Because that was my goal. I kept hearing all these people that were transplanted talking about they wanted to go to transplant games. Never heard of it. I'm talking to people in the dialysis center. They don't know nothing about it. I'm talking to other kidney patients. They don't know nothing about it. It seems like it's from Northern Virginia all the way up because people down here didn't know anything about the transplant game. That just gave me an extra incentive. Lose weight, get in shape, go to a transplant game. Go to a transplant game. I get a gold medal. My first transplant game. Though it was in bowling, I'ma still take it. Because I also participated in shot put and discus because I did that in high school. Trying to relive your past, sometimes it doesn't work. This is my granddaughter. The one that was actually able to watch me do dialysis. She's the reason I got a transplant. She's the reason that I went into the weight loss clinic. She was the only one to be able to sit in the room with me while I dialyzed. Tina and I my wife and I have 8 grandchildren with one due any second. That will give us a total of 9. None of those grandkids understand, hey, Pop, you're tired. Hey, Pop, your kidney not working. Hey, Pop, you got to come play with us. That was the reason why I need to lose weight. That was the reason why I need to get a transplant. So since I joined the weight loss clinic, this was my last picture, 6 books. I've lost 63 pounds. I lost more. I gained some back because I hit a wall. 63 pounds. My goal was 85. But I have a new goal this year. And I'm going to make it an even 100 because I had to refocus. Because the weight isn't about me, but it's about folks that struggle like me, folks that look like me, folks that share the same comorbidities as me. Because a lot of times when we go out and advocate for kidney disease, advocating for kidney patients, a lot of times we don't talk about the comorbidities. So even though I look well, I have retinal eye disease, which is an offshoot of poor diabetic care. I'm also suffering with diabetic neuropathy. So when I'm at the gym running or just even walking around the house, it's short of feeling like gout. My last A1C, 5.4, yet I'm still considered diabetic. I'm considered diabetic just with good management. So blood pressure is good, yet I'm still on medication. So, it's these different variables that we have to deal with. But one of the things that I have learned in this journey that I've been on is you can't allow folks to give you a diagnosis and just let that be it. You can't always allow other people to define you. I sat at a conference in December and I just flat out told all these international clinicians and scientists and researchers, I'm not a patient no more. I'm a pupil. I stopped being a patient some years ago and I started learning. I became a student of the game. So that when I sit down with a provider, I should know just as much as they know. And whatever I don't know, we're going to stick a pin in it. And we're going to talk about that until I'm comfortable enough to go forward. So I don't even like to call myself a patient advocate. I'm more of a consumer advocate. You don't call a car a patient when you work on it. And sometimes the word patient tends to stigmatize people. You tell people you have a disease and all of a sudden they think you're abnormal. So I ask people the question, what is normal? If me living with one functioning kidney, that's my normal. Would you tell somebody living with one limb or that they're abnormal? And they have to change their lifestyle so that they can have a sense of normalcy. See, everybody's normal isn't the same. And that's what we in this society need to understand. So this is my new normal. And these are the things that I had to change in order to be healed. So now I am healed. And in my advocacy, which is also my passion, I just want to go support and encourage and motivate other folks not to give up, to speak to your situation, because you just cannot be defined or allow yourself to be defined by somebody else.